The college football experience, college football playoffs round 2 reaction show episode of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Sign up, and when you do, sign up with the promo code TCESGPN to get a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. Rhythm is the leader in data-driven picks and props. Get your free 7-day trial period today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's RITHMM. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. And remember, as always, folks, to let it ride.
Hey, folks, this is Bud Foster. You're listening to SGPN. Let's let it ride.
Welcome to the college football experience. College football playoffs round 2 reaction show. We've been waiting for this one because it got spread out over a couple of days, obviously because of a crazy tragedy in New Orleans there. But yeah, I'm glad to get this episode out though, and to talk about all 4 of these games and what we got going next week. YouTube.com/the college experience. Hit that like and subscribe button as the journey continues on the college football season. If you're wondering who the hell you're listening to, my name is Colby Swinging Database Dan, aka Pick Dundee. That's not a pick. This is a pick.
He was raised in the land down under, where a man thinks on his feet, speaks with his fists, and lives by his wits.
When Dundee happened, he was a superstar.
Nobody knows nothing.
Somebody knows. Double the price, but no one touches Dundee.
Woo! I'm your leprechaun, huh? Big time win. And yeah, what a game. Fun game there at the Superdome, that bullshit stadium. But I can't give it too much of a hard time tonight because the good people in New Orleans they've had to deal with too much shit already. So I am joined by my co-host. He is some say the DFS god himself, and some of the hits we had this past 4 games as far as the prop market on our. I hope you listened to our props episode because we kind of killed it. Give it up for the rooftop IPA drinking, homebrew making, tobacco road living, the free lot giving, farmer, Herndon Basketball League MVP. Give it up for NC Nick in the place to be.
There we go. What's going on, man? That was a fun game.
Let's get it going. All right. Shout out to the chat once again. Come be a part of it. Cannabis Capper, my guy, Bet Boy Tony C, Kobe Hoodis. Yes. And Michael Morgan, first time listening off of Spotify. This is way better. There we go. Colt saying fuck the SEC, and let's just get right into it, buddy, because I think yes, Georgia played with a backup quarterback, but I think you can make the argument. He was 20 of 32, 234 and a touchdown. You can make the argument he might be better than Carson Beck. So I don't know if I know one was a starter, but played pretty damn well for a backup. Sure. And Notre Dame gets their biggest win in a long time. They hadn't won a major bowl, I think, since like 92 or some shit like that. Huge win there. Riley Leonard does it by just throwing for 90 yards. Notre Dame wins 23-10. And NC Nick, my first thought just with all 4 of these games in general is the changing landscape of college athletics. The NIL is just making it so you can go get a Riley Leonard. You can go get Ryan Clark's son from Arizona State. And the same could be said for Arizona State with Sam Leavitt from Michigan State coming over, and a slew of other guys that were key contributors on their team. Cam Scattaboo from Sac State in the FCS. But let's just single out this game right now. Notre Dame 23, Georgia 10. I was on the Irish. I believe you were on these dogs, right?
I was on the dogs. I thought they were looking pretty good early, But nope, they did not get it done. I am a Riley Leonard fan. I don't really, I'm not a fan. I don't hate either Notre Dame or Georgia, but I do like Riley Leonard. So I was happy for him to get that big first down, to get the win and to advance. But you're right. I mean, you started with saying Gunnar Stockton was not the reason why Georgia lost this game. Not having Carson Beck was not the reason Georgia lost this game. So you can't really use that excuse. I mean, sure. Is it ideal to have your backup quarterback in the biggest game of the year starting his first start ever? No, it's not. But he did quite well. So I don't really want to hear that excuse from Georgia or SEC fans.
Well, I mean, look, you could say it. I mean, years before pre-NIL, you saw Stetson Bennett come in and win a natty.
Sure.
You saw Tua come in and win a natty. You saw Cardale Jones, the third stringer, by the way, because the top two got injured for Ohio State, come in and win a natty. So, I mean, I don't think that really holds that much water. I think the bigger story is what NIL can do to me. And that is
along with the transfer portal, obviously, because it's not.
Yes. Well, I think they do go hand in hand in Riley Leonard's situation.
Sure.
Riley Leonard was at Duke and Notre Dame needed a quarterback. And they were able to go get maybe the best quarterback in the whole entire, I think you could argue Riley Leonard coming into the rankings. I know he was listed among the top QBs. I know Cam Ward, Dylan Gabriel in there as well. Will Howard, a slew of other good ones, but
it's not going to work out every year. Sam Hartman didn't really work out last year for Notre Dame. Riley Leonard is working out.
And you're seeing, I mean, I think it's leveled the playing field so much. NIL.
But at the same time, if we're going to talk about Gunnar Stockton, Notre Dame didn't necessarily win the game because of Riley Leonard either. I mean, he was a big part. His 80 yards rushing was a big part. Several key plays, making the big mistake.
That was what I was about to say. They won. This is my handicap. Was like, I trust him not to make the mistake.
But neither did Stockton.
Well, he had that big fumble. But that wasn't his fault.
I mean,
that wasn't his fault.
Was getting beat like a drum all night long.
And I'll say that's the big thing to me, and this has got to be NIL related. Is Notre Dame for the first time since like 1993 has guys to me. Like, they've had guys like periodically before, but I'm talking about their running backs. Their running backs, and to me, just a couple. They have more speed than normal. They're more athletic than I can recall a Notre Dame being since the days of, I don't know, Derek Mays or something, like mid 90s with Lou Holtz. This is the most athletic Notre Dame team that I can recall. Now, that through those years, did they have good players? Sure, on the defensive line and offensive line specifically. But Georgia had a problem. The O-line was not that good this year. And
that's really what it came down to. It came down to Notre Dame's strong defense and line play. Notre Dame beat them on the offensive line. They beat them on the defensive line. That's rare for that to happen to Georgia, especially from Notre Dame. True.
A couple big plays to me by those athletes that traditionally Notre Dame didn't have those athletes. Some being Riley Leonard, but some also being, Price or Love or the lacrosse player
Faison.
Faison. Yeah, those guys to me are a little bit better, a little more athletic than Notre Dame of 10 years ago, of 20 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. I think I agree with that. But I mean, for me, this game came down to 3 plays. The 2 turnovers that Notre Dame forced Georgia into, because the turnover battle was 2-0 in Notre Dame's favor, and then the kick return. Go back to those turnovers. Georgia was in position to put up points, whether it be a field goal or a touchdown. They would have put up points on that drive. And then the strip sacks, that gives Notre Dame points because it was right in their own territory. So those 3 plays, ball game, wraps.
I'm also going to say Marcus Freeman out coach Kirby Smart. The whole punting thing, bringing in the taking the punt team off abruptly, getting that offsides by Georgia, I thought was huge. Probably one of the biggest moments. But yes, you are right. It did come down to 3 plays. But at the same time, like, I'm going to refuse to believe that Notre Dame was this athletic 5-10 years ago. I don't remember them. Like, I would watch them, and I remember telling Patty C, I go, they got no one. They got no guys. And I think the NFL kind of speaks for it, like, as far as skill position players, right?
Sure.
I think, yes, they've been great on the offensive line, tight end, D-line for a while, right? But they just didn't have the guys on the outside where I feel like this Notre Dame team had the best that I can recall since the 90s. And then when you mix that with Riley Leonard, who I think plays good turnover-free football, and the fact that he can run, and I think they obviously studied the tape of Haynes King and what he did to the Dogs. Because
that's what pains me though, is that we were on the Riley Leonard rushing prop last week, and I guess against Indiana he didn't really need to run, but against Georgia obviously they needed to do whatever they could, to win, and that was him rushing 14 carries for 80 yards. But nobody's going to really be impressed with his passing numbers, 15 of 24 for 90 and a touchdown. But the way the game was going, you didn't need to pass the ball if you were Notre Dame. I mean, Stockton, that's why Stockton threw for so much more. It's because Georgia couldn't run the ball.
But that's been an issue for them all year. That's been an issue for
yards rushing, 2.1 yards per rush. I mean, most of that is offensive line play, but I think they start the wrong running back. I think Nate Frazier is better than Trevor Etienne. Would that have made a big difference here? Maybe not. I don't think that necessarily swayed the game to the Irish, but I think Frazier is just the better running back, even if he's a true freshman. But it's surprising to see the Notre Dame defensive line missing their best guy still completely dominate Georgia in the run game and make them one-dimensional and have to pass the ball.
Missing their best corner too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like Notre Dame was hit bad by the injury bug as well. Georgia's offensive line has been a problem all year.
Yeah,
been a problem all year,
especially that left tackle position, which the announcers kept on harping on. I mean, rightfully so. 4 sacks. Notre Dame sacked Georgia 4 times compared to Georgia sacking Notre Dame just once. Also a huge difference right there.
Yeah. And I mean, look, the special teams, the real kick return. Shout out to GBO Farms, who I like to argue with, and I know he's in denial about the SEC being a lackluster conference now that NIL and transfer portal is a thing.
Now we'll see how long.
What's the Alabama? Hey, I haven't seen GBO Farms since the Alabama game. You still arguing for Alabama to get in? The backups from Michigan. The B team. They didn't even give you Mr. T. What? They gave you fucking. They threw out Ron Simmons, and you couldn't handle that.
Don't worry, Ole Miss is up 14-0 on Duke, so I'm sure they'll make the case that Ole Miss is the team that should have been in, and if Ole Miss was in, they would have ran the table and won the championship.
Yeah, South Carolina also couldn't handle it. Couldn't handle my guy Brett Bielema. It's okay, buddy. The NIL has changed it all, and it's coming. It's coming to a local college football stadium near you.
The question is, and it's probably a bigger question for this show, is how long is the NIL like it is now in place? They're going to put a cap on this thing. And once there's a cap, only programs that are willing to cheat are going to spend money on top of the cap. And it's going to go back to the same system we just had. So
potentially, we'll see.
Do you know who wants a cap? Yeah. Alabama wants a cap.
Oh yeah.
Teams like that aren't necessarily from wealthy states, that don't have wealthy donors. They're the ones that want the cap because they're not afraid to cheat. And that's.
But I also completely agree. I saw Bud Elliott tweeting this. The ramifications for what Indiana and SMU and Boise experienced this year. They're going to throw a shit ton of money. I think I already read an article that Boise's throwing in just the local community is throwing in way more money than they previously would have because of the access.
And in the current model, that makes all the difference. But will the current model stay and for how long?
Yeah, but also what can they gain in that meantime? You know what I mean? Like if SMU is in the party now, that train's not leaving. You know what I mean? Boise's train, if they're putting more money in, that train is not leaving.
Yeah.
And so on and so on. Anyway, big time win there. That's the biggest win of Marcus Freeman's career, you would say, right? Obviously,
sure, hands down, of course. Yeah. And look, it came down to, I think these teams are fairly even. I don't think Notre Dame's that much better than Georgia, but Georgia was never a great team this year. They just weren't, because nobody is. And that's one thing that we got right coming into the season, coming into the playoffs, was that there are really no great teams this year. So there's a bunch of pretty good teams. Georgia included, Notre Dame included. Notre Dame wins this one. If they play again tomorrow,
Notre Dame wins
Georgia
that
wins.
one.
I don't know. I don't know about that for sure.
I think so. I think they got beat, pretty soundly, and we can now admit that Northern Illinois is better than the SEC champ. Hey, GBO, have the Vols play a max schedule on a Tuesday, Wednesday. See how they do. All right. And I'm talking about you actually road games, not just Kent State, which you put on the schedule. All right. Come up and play at the Rubber Bowl. All right. Play at the Glass Bowl. Play at some of these places. All right.
Is that Dundee or Patty C with that tuck job?
Folks, I want to tell you the college football experience is brought to you by us, SGPN. Yes, we're part of the Sports Kelly Podcast Network, and all of our picks and podcasts are in one place for free. It's the SGPN app. You also get you'll get all of our articles. Cannabis Capper kills it on the article front there. Bunch of great people doing great stories. NC Nick used to be submitting stuff all the time, and then he had kids, and he said, I can't write for shit these days. I got writer's block. All right, but you get all of that. You get all of that in the app, the SGPN app. Grab that in the App Store or Google Play Store, and remember, as always, folks, to let it ride. We're also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Pick'em is one of the biggest menus for all the sports, and Underdog's always making it easier to win with Profit Boost and Gimme Pick'ems. And look, Underdog Playoff Best Ball is now live. The Gauntlet Tournament has $2 million in prizes up for grabs for just a $25 entry. There's college hoops, there's college football, there's NFL, NBA, NASCAR, CFL, MLB, NHL, MMA, and much, much more. So sign up, and when you do, sign up with the promo code TCESGPN to claim your special pick plus first time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code TCESGPN. All right, we are back. The Irish are celebrating in New Orleans. I got a text from my buddy. Shout out to my guy, Dano Carter. Great stand-up comedian, Notre Dame grad. And, he flew out to New Orleans. I'm sure he's not sober. He just sent me a text. I don't know. It was very long, but nothing was spelled correctly. But shout out to Dano Carter. The other games that happened on this fine 12-team playoff was my number one lock of the weekend. Ohio State -2.5 as they, and that's the thing, as they just destroyed Oregon 41-21. NC Nick, they were up 31-0 or 34-0. I think 34-0. And I think that's when we got to admit the committee got it wrong by putting Oregon in the field. They didn't do enough. Right? They're down 34-0. You can't have these type of games, even though 53% of the NFL playoffs in the 2000s have been by 2 touchdowns or more. But you can't have these games.
Well, if you apply that logic to SMU, then I guess you have to apply it to Oregon and Tennessee. Sorry, JBO Farms. I don't want to bring up Tennessee again, but yeah. If you think SMU shouldn't have been in because they got blown out, well, then I guess, what do you have to say about the other teams? What about these P4 teams that are also getting blown out?
Yes, and now I will say this: the seeding system. I'm all over the place with the seeding system because do I think Arizona State outplayed Texas? I do. We'll get to that. Do I think Boise was actually outplayed by Penn State, but I do think Boise should have covered. Yeah. I like Patty C's angle of you keeping the 4 conference. If you're going to go with this 12-team bullshit and not 24 or something, then I do think it keeps it honest because we know how corrupt the sport is. And if you keep the top 4 conference winners, it negates the corruption to a certain extent.
Yeah.
So,
I guess even though that didn't happen this year because Boise was one of the top 4 and not the ACC champion. I see that point. In general, I don't like the way the seeding is because I think the top 4.
Yeah. Oregon got screwed. Oregon really got screwed, but no, to be fair, I don't think Texas should have been hosting a playoff game.
Yeah, and I do think the top 4, the best 4 teams should get the bye, but who determines who the best 4 teams is? That's the problem. And too far often the committee does not choose the best 4 teams. Last year, Florida State, or don't even say best, the most deserving, because that's what it is. Because we don't want to get into the whole Herb Street argument as far as who cares about the wins. We just want to pick the best teams. No, the most deserving teams should. But
that's why I like that safety net.
Yeah, I guess I agree with you. That's why I'm kind of on the fence with it too. Because I don't think sometimes there's going to be a case where there's an ACC champ or a Big 12 champ or maybe even a Big 10 or an SEC champ who doesn't deserve the bye. That's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean,
but I guess do you want to buy? Because
that's another angle, and I've said that for the NFL playoffs. Right. Historically, I think buys are dangerous. I mean, how many times have we watched the 1 seed look awesome? I remember that Elway Terrell Davis team the year before they won the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
they were like 14-2, got that bye week. And then, I think the Jacksonville Jaguars had that wild card game with Brunell. And then I remember just right after that, they caught lightning in a bottle, and the Broncos just looked a little shell shocked there. But I can agree to that the home games need to happen more. Like, these stadiums all suck that they play these events at, with the exception of the Rose Bowl. Shout out to Weehawk though, who does say game was in New Orleans. No shots of Brian Kelly and his family. Biggest disappointment of the night. That is another great angle. Is he's right there. And remember what he said? He said one of the reasons why is he felt like he couldn't win it all at Notre Dame. That's one of his reasons for leaving at LSU.
I did see a great tweet by somebody saying that Notre Dame would have never made it this far if Brian Kelly wouldn't have left.
I believe it. I believe that to be accurate. Because his teams were kind of pussy. They're more physical now. Right. Yeah.
Now it was a different era. He didn't have the opportunity to hit up the transfer portal and pay for players. So who knows? But once upon a time, I thought he was a better coach than I do now. That's for sure.
Yeah. So Ohio State 41, Oregon 21. I actually cashed twice on this because I took Oregon plus 24, I think, in the second half. And that thing ended up cashing for me. But Ohio State, this was just a true ass one. Like I said, it was not fair to Oregon. And you have to realize that no system is fair. Even in the NFL, how many times have we seen, it's not every year, but a lot of years, you've seen like the 12-4 team that didn't win the NFC East has got to go on the road to the 8-8, Seattle Seahawks or something. I don't. There's plenty of examples if you go through the history. So
NCAA basketball tournament. You got teams that have just a really tough draw, and sometimes they can't manage that draw. And if they would have gotten an easier route, who knows? Maybe they'd be cutting down the nets.
Yeah. GBO, have a good night, brother. Yeah.
And
I mean,
team Bass Pack. I got one eye on the Duke Bowl game here, but I got a feeling I'm not going to want to watch the Duke Bowl game. So,
I mean, they're starting nobody. This was a lock. Ole Miss minus the points.
Yeah, if you listen to our pick show, even I was on Ole Miss. I didn't bet it because I can't bet against my boys, but I didn't have a good feeling about it.
I bet Ole Miss. But how about this game, man? I mean, Ohio State had 500 yards of offense against the so-called one of the top defenses. I don't know. You can skew the stats. Sometimes you pull up the defensive numbers. Sometimes you can make them look good. Sometimes you can make them look bad. What
is there to say about this game? It was just total domination from the opening kick. If you wanted the game where we really crushed it on the props, you gave out Will Howard over 300 yards. What was that again? I forget. Plus 300 or something.
Yeah, I think it was plus 320,
something like that.
Yeah.
I gave out both quarterbacks over 1.5 touchdowns. We both were on Travion Henderson over on his rushing. I was on Jordan James under his rushing. He ran for 14 yards. I mean, that was one of the easiest bets ever. I was on Egbuka over his receiving yards hitting the first half. I was on Terrence Ferguson, the tight end for Oregon, over. He cashed too. But Ohio State sure looks pretty damn dominant right now, don't they?
I mean, now here's the question. Is this a benefit of just getting that second matchup? Because we always say the second matchup, you get to see it in basketball a lot, but in football you don't. In the NFL you do. And it's very hard to beat a team twice.
Sure. I mean, Oregon was a good team this year, but again, it's not like they were a dominant team. They had a very nice season. undefeated regular season, win the Big Ten in their first year in the conference. Congrats, great year. But if I can speak for both of us, none of us thought Oregon was head and shoulders above anybody else in this field of 12. And the fact that they beat Ohio State, getting aided by their home field environment big time, like we mentioned, like the penalties and the turnovers, stuff like that really, helped the Ducks win that game. So, yeah, I mean, look, we were both on Ohio State. I don't know if I expected such a domination.
I thought they'd win by like 10. I didn't think they'd win by like up 34-0 at halftime. Woo!
Yeah. Now, pretty interesting. They'll be playing Texas now in the state of Texas.
Yeah, that's some more bullshit for the streets. But look, Team Bass Pack says, here's a question for both you guys. What do you think? What do you guys grade this college football bracket, and what would make it better? Well, more teams would make it better from the start. More home games, more teams. Like you have, what is college football? Take what is great about college football. And I think one of the first things you would say would be the home atmospheres. Well, why would you not play more games, more marquee games in those home atmospheres? So more teams, more home games, this round really, it makes no sense too. Especially when you consider they played a game in Arizona and they struggled for ticket sales. Well, guess what? If you have Arizona play in Arizona, you have another game in Atlanta, but no, Georgia's playing in New Orleans. Well, ticket sales struggle a little bit. The only game I think ticket sales wise that held up was the Rose Bowl, because the Rose Bowl is the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, do you see the price of these tickets that I've?
It's like $12. You can get into one of these games.
Well, no, some of the sorry, at least the home games, the tickets are very expensive.
Oh yeah, yeah. But I'm saying this round, you could get in to 3 of the 4 for, right. And I think they realized some of them, weren't even all the way packed. I think they're going to realize that, hey, what are we doing? Play more, like what makes college football great. And I think it's another reason that can make because some the people say, well, the regular season's been devalued. Well, that'll make it even more, because college football environments to me are the best. Like their stadiums are way bigger than the NFL stadiums. You saw it this past, first round. So it's and the fans are, it's not as much corporate dollars. It's like it's a louder experience than the NFL. So it's a harder thing to do, to go in and win. So that would make the regular season, I think more valuable.
A few folks in the chat said the quick and easy fix is to go to 16. Yeah. So no buys anymore. And the first 2 rounds at home stadiums. I mean, that is the easiest. If you want to go up to like 32 and then do automatic qualifiers from every conference, I'd love that also.
That's the perfect blueprint. Is every conference, this is America. Every team deserves a guy. It's a land of opportunity, damn it. All right. And you're supposed to get the opportunity if you win your conference.
Equality of opportunity, right? You won't have equality of outcome, but equality of
the FCS does that. The FCS says, hey, you win this conference, you're automatically in, right? Now you might have to go play on the road, but you're in. All right. That makes it just so much better throughout everything. But aside from that, like, what do you make? Like, how? Yeah, I guess that pretty much answers that question. Then, like, what would make it better? I think those things right there.
Yeah, I mean, closer games would have made this year better. We've had quite a few blowouts, but I mean, just like the NFL playoffs, you're gonna have some blowouts also. I mean, that Texas-Arizona State game, which I guess this can lead right up into it. I mean, that's just a fantastic game. That was awesome. I mean, how could you not watch that game and think college football is the greatest?
Yeah, they just need to fix the targeting rules.
That's true.
And the blindside block, because Texas had a 70-yard punt return or whatever it was by Slade Bolden, 50-yard punt return.
Now you think Arizona State outplayed Texas? You said
I don't know. Box score tells you it. I think Texas. If you would have told me, I took Texas, right? If you would have told me that what I think is the best offensive line in football, which is Texas, would only rush for 53 yards.
Yeah, even worse than Georgia.
And Quinn Ewers, that includes like his 8-yard touchdown or whatever that he ran. That was shocking to me. And I saw Nick Saban talk about this. Arizona State beat him on the line of scrimmage. They beat him on the line of scrimmage, man. Now, Did they have kicking woes? Did they have some dumb decisions? To me, 4th and 1 running to the teeth of the defense was very stupid. But I do believe Arizona State was the better football team. Texas, to me, and to me, like the biggest plays, I just have issues. South Carolina fans, I felt bad for them because they should have been in the playoffs potentially had that blindside block bullshit against LSU not been, if had that been called correctly, which to me, the same exact play happened in Texas, Arizona State on that punt return for touchdown, the same exact play, they let it go. Right. And then obviously the targeting, which I think is also ridiculous. Like I hate targeting. I don't think it should be in the sport. They should have the spearing rule that we had in the 80s that to me, if you are maliciously trying to hurt someone, flag you.
Yeah.
But to me, it is too subjective. It makes no sense. It's not consistent at all. And I do believe, call me a conspiracy theorist, I believe if Arizona State if that was going the other way, they would have called that on Arizona State.
Now people will bring up the interception where there was also a potential targeting call, which
that was
honestly,
not targeting though. That was
honestly, when that happened, I was thinking they're going to throw a flag. Because
I thought so too. When it happened in real time, I thought so. But then on the replay, I think it shows pretty clearly that it was not his head. It was like his left shoulder that did the damage.
I thought it was a borderline if they'd call it or not. The other one, I thought for sure they have to call it. Even though none of us like that rule, and that's why it's kind of hard to argue for it. But if you're gonna call it, in any other game against any other team, then you have to call it now too. I mean, you have the luxury of replay too. So how you can watch that on replay and not say it's targeting, I don't know.
Well, especially, Texas went over the top for a touchdown early in the game. 23-yard touchdown, I believe it was. They were able to do that because the starting safety for Arizona State was out with targeting from the Big 12 championship. He missed the first half on a bullshit targeting charge. Yeah. So to me, like I completely think it's ridiculous. I think the rule needs to go. I thought Arizona State's the better team. And it's not like, yes, they had the punt return, but that punt return, Nick, I'm looking at it right now. It's only 48-yard return.
Yeah. This
is not like a 90-yard return where it changes everything, right? They were going to get the ball in Arizona State field position, right? And so to me, you pull up these numbers and you're just like, wait a second. Arizona State had 510 yards of offense, right? They ran for 214 yards. Like, to me, this was clearly the better team. Like, look at every single number and tell me who's the better team.
Well, if you look in the first half, Arizona State had 4 first half drives, like long drives. They had a 12-play 63-yard drive, an 11-play 45-yard drive, a 9-play 37-yard drive, and a 12-play 61-yard drive. And the end result of those 4 drives was 3 points. But that is almost impossible to be that bad. When you're in the red zone or the other team's territory, just only 3 points was absolutely ridiculous. But you could tell they were missing weapons. I mean, it was Scadaboo and it was Levitt, and that's it. That was almost enough. Those 2 guys are dogs and almost enough to put them over the top. But man, they could have used Jordan Tyson. They could have used some other options, especially once you get in the red zone and once everybody's focusing on Scadaboo. But I thought in the second half, the play calling got more creative and that allowed them to get back in the game. And Texas just goes through stretches where they look very average.
Yeah. And by the way, I stand corrected. That is a 75-yard return. The thing I'm looking at here was right, incorrect.
Shout out to EB Steelers. And EB Steelers, believe it or not, we are not in the same house. Even though we're brothers, we each have our own house. So we're not teenagers anymore.
So yeah, we just go from different rooms, right? I got sent to my room to podcast again. No, but okay. So that's a 30-yard difference there, but I still believe, first off, I thought that was a clear blindside block. Go watch that play and tell me that's not what they've called all fucking year. Right. And to me, I just thought Arizona State was the better team. Like, the stats back me up on this. I am shocked that Texas could not establish the line of scrimmage against them.
Yeah.
Like that was the most shocking thing to me. That was my whole thing of like doing other shows and stuff. I was like, I got to take Texas. They're going to destroy them on the line of scrimmage. I think Texas does have the best offensive line. I thought that, and they got shit on all game.
Our guy, Quinn Trevion Wisner, 18 rushes for 45 yards, averaging 2.5 yards per carry. And then Jaden Blue, even worse, 4 carries, 4 yards. That was very surprising to see him get it done that way. Ewers had a nice game passing the ball, but the fact that Texas could not run the ball whatsoever was very surprising.
Can we talk about, like, I think Steve Sarkisian is a shitty coach. Like, I think he's good at getting, obviously it's Texas, you have the talent, but this team to me is so much more talented than that performance that I'm seeing on paper that I saw during that game. Texas should have beat them by way more to me. Like,
yeah, no, I mean, I guess that's a fair critique, but at the same time, he's now in the Final Four teams in college football 2 years in a row. And Texas was always underachieving before he got there. So you can definitely critique maybe his in-game coaching, but he's doing pretty well. I mean, you can't argue with the results so far 2 years in a row.
I just think, like, in big games, I watched this game and I'm like, man, he should be beating them by more.
I mean, offensively, so much more talent with the skill position than Arizona State, for sure.
It makes for a great Dillingham. I thought, man, what a season for Arizona State. It's a damn shame that they didn't have a kicker. You know what I mean? Like, they were in position, because I do believe if they had a better kicker, they would have not gone for one of those fourth downs. And that sometimes it could be that little, what I mean? Like,
but at the same time, Texas's kicker sucked ass in this game. And
true.
They would have won the game in regulation if he could have made either of his 2 misses.
Well, true. But the difference is that he hadn't been ass all year. So, like, it changes your game plan.
Sure.
If you're looking at Arizona State's kicking situation, you're like, man, I think we have to go for this.
Kind of like Boise's.
Yeah. It's a big deal.
You're the damn kicker.
Yeah, unbelievable season for Arizona State. Texas advances, and then a Friday night game, Penn State, Boise. See, I will argue that I was on the right side of the points. Now, Penn State ends up getting the cover. Boise, to me, the big thing with this game was Penn State was the better team. There's no denying. Even though, ironically, Boise did outgain them, but I think the big thing here, I don't like Maddox Madsen. He's just not there yet. He's a great first year as a quarterback, and he played well considering.
He did.
But to me, you have to be able to take some deep shots and connect. Like he was efficient, but they were like 5-yard dink and dunks.
Yeah, I mean, he threw for 300, but you're right, and the 3 interceptions. It's huge. I mean, I think when on the pick show we said, Boise, they can't lose a turnover battle by more than 1, and they lost the turnover battle 4-1.
Yeah.
And then you missed 2 field goals on top of that. So I mean, again, they had.
Why does Boise never have a good kicker?
I don't know, but you lose the turnover battle 4-1, and you're 0 for 2 on field goals. What the hell do you think is going to happen if you're Boise playing Penn State? So. Yeah. And then, I mean, they couldn't stop the Penn State ground game. I don't think Drew Aller had a very good game in this game or against SMU, but they're pounding the rock. Can they do that against Notre Dame? Probably not as well. So that's going to be a very intriguing matchup. We all saw this from the get-go. Penn State had a pretty easy route, man. SMU and Boise. I mean, no offense to those 2 schools, but that's the path that you want.
See, but the seeding. Everyone wants to blame Boise. I don't. Imagine if Penn State had to play at Boise. That game changes. That game really changes.
Sure. But one more thing about this game too, like the first drive, the same thing as SMU, almost identical. SMU goes on a 7-play, 49-yard drive. They turnover on downs, nothing to show for it.
Inside the 20, right? It was like at the 22 or something, right?
Yeah. Boise goes on an 8-play, 47-yard drive, almost damn near identical. They miss a field goal, nothing to show for it. As soon as that happened, I'm like, oh shit, man, this is going to be all over again. Thankfully, Boise and their tradition, their culture, they fought back. They made it a game. They had every chance to cover, but you're right. Penn State was the better team.
Well, I cashed my Tyler Warren, aka John Riggins,
Plus 360.
That was the best part. Is I had both my John Riggins players in the playoffs. I had Scadaboo as John Riggins and Tyler Warren as John Riggins.
I also think you threw out Matt Lauder, the Boise State tight end, anytime touchdown plus 280.
I did. But yeah, shout out to Penn State. Like I said, to me, this game changes if it's in Boise. Penn State might still win the game because they were definitely the better team at the neutral. But imagine you're hosting, right? Imagine Arizona State was hosting Texas, NC Nick.
For sure.
So that's why I know they're going to change it, and it sucks because I don't think they're thinking this through. You got it just because it didn't work 1 year. And to me, it didn't work because of Oregon playing Ohio State. That's the way. That's the real failure. I don't have a problem with the rest.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought, BYU should have potentially been in, not Alabama or South Carolina. But at the same time, you're going to have bid stealers, and Clemson stole a bid. So I actually think they got it right as far as the 12 teams in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I just think if I asked you that, if Ohio State had to go to Autzen, I think that game's way closer, right?
Sure.
If Notre Dame has to go to Georgia, Notre Dame probably loses, right? If Boise's hosting Penn State, I think that game's 50-50 almost. I think Arizona State beats Texas in Sun Devil Stadium. So that's why you play the home games. You protect your seating. Anyway, folks, want to tell you the college football experience is brought to you by mybookie.ag. Look, we've been with MyBookie for a long time. They're fired. They got props for every game. Live dealer casinos, a blast. They got new early cash out options. I can tell you one. I like the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors late night tonight. But if you're listening to this tomorrow, I guess I should give you Buffalo in the Bahamas. Take that Bahamas Bowl.
Hell yeah.
Buffalo Bull is going to get it done. Pete Lambeau, he knows what he's doing. Head over to mybookie.ag. Use that promo code TCESGPN for 100% deposit match up to $1,000. Plus, they're going to give you a little $10 casino chip. That's mybookie.ag, promo code TCESGPN. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. Look, Rhythm is the #1 AI powered sports betting platform that helps provide bettors of all levels the ability to build custom predictive betting models in seconds and get predictions for betting on money lines, spreads, totals, props. You can copy one of the top models from the leaderboard. You'll probably make cash. Me, I like to build my own. Rhythm adjust around what I like after I build my own. You can now track your props in the Rhythm app as well. They got college football, they got college hoops, they got NBA, they got NFL, they got it all. Claim your free 7-day trial period today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's RITHMM. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. All right.
A week from today, the next game will be going on right now. It'll be about halftime.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you about these bowl games. You had what? Iowa, Missouri was a classic. Missouri got the best of Michigan, Alabama, Louisville, Washington was a hell of a game. The best one was South Carolina, Illinois to me. And then Baylor, LSU was a game, a bowl game that was going on, and currently we have Duke getting beat down 17-7.
Duke scored
17-7.
So you tell me there's a chance.
What do you make of these other bowl games, man? Did you catch the South Carolina Illinois game?
That's one I didn't catch a lot of.
That was the best one.
Yeah,
that was the best one.
A good chunk of Bama, Michigan, and a little bit of Louisville, Washington, Baylor, LSU. But again, I mean, almost all these bowl games are close this year. So, our podcast has ragged on bowl games for a long time, but there's been at least some close, compelling, matchups this year.
Yeah, and hopefully you cashed. That was on a money line play from Dundee here. Took the 10 or 9.5, whatever it was at the time of the show, and said sprinkle that money line. But Yeah, I mean that game was fantastic. And then Michigan, Alabama. Your thoughts on? Was that you texting me, or was that Patty C saying if Michigan only had a quarterback this year, they probably would have won the national championship?
Yeah, I mean, dude. I mean, that's at least 2 or 3 more wins if they had a solid quarterback, right? So they went 7-5 regular season, two more wins, and maybe you're in consideration. I mean, if you're Michigan, if you're the defending champion, maybe they do get in. But if they're 10-2. Then they probably would get in the playoff. And then who knows? Because, I mean, look, they're going to go into next year on a 2-game win streak beating Ohio State and Alabama. That's pretty damn good.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, watching that game, that was my favorite game of I mean, obviously, it's just knowing how many guys were out for Michigan.
Yeah.
And all these people bitch about Bama and then just see them get their ass whooped. It was phenomenal to me. It was perfect. It was everything. And I let me ask you this, man. And I want to ask you about these upcoming games, but Kalen DeBoer, do you think he has a little bit of buyer's remorse on taking that job?
I mean, who knows? I mean, 9-3 is not a bad year one. Of course, Bama's not happy.
No,
with
9-4, 9-4.
In the regular season, 9-3.
Yeah, okay.
Of course, the fans aren't happy there, so he knew there's going to be really high expectations. But also, he's getting paid a lot of money, and he's at one of the most prestigious college football teams in the nation.
How prestigious now, though? Their athletic director say we need donations. There's this thing called NIL happening out there. Yeah. We can't keep up with Texas A&M, and all these other schools.
Plus Washington has themselves a quarterback. That freshman that was playing, what's his name? Damon Williams Jr.
Yeah, he can play. He can play. He lit up, but he threw for 374 against Louisville. Okay. Well, before we get out of here, let's take a look now. Obviously, you got all these other bowl games. If you want intel on North Texas, Texas State, Minnesota, Virginia Tech, Buffalo, Liberty, we gave you the handicap on Buffalo, but that's on the podcast from the previous pod. The lines just dropped Thursday, January 9th, 7:30 Eastern, Notre Dame, Penn State. Why
Miami?
Can't this be on campus though? This would be so great on campus.
In the final 4 games, I actually don't mind. I think that the first couple rounds should definitely be campus games, but you're talking about now the final 4. I'm okay with neutral sites.
No. Just because they stick to 5 locations and it's a huge advantage for those teams that are there. Like LSU's played multiple national championships in fucking New Orleans. Bullshit.
Well, there's no advantage this year in Miami between Notre Dame and Penn State. There will be an advantage in the second game, but dude, this is a great game, man. And it's only Notre Dame -1.5.
I'm seeing the Irish -1.5. This game's awesome. This game is awesome.
It should kind of be like the Notre Dame Georgia game. I mean, it's going to be low scoring, strong defenses, strong run games. I mean, who can control the line of scrimmage and what quarterback doesn't make the mistakes?
That's another thing. We cashed on the under tonight. In that Notre Dame Georgia game. I know we're going to do our pick show, but do you have a teeter right now?
That's tough, man. I might go Notre Dame again.
Yeah. See, Cody Frazier knows what I'm talking about. Georgia played at home in Mercedes Stadium like 20 fucking times. Miami back in the day would play in the Orange Bowl.
Yeah.
All the time. That's why I do it on campus, because it's the corruption. Texas playing in fucking Texas is horseshit. You know what I mean? Like, once again, I feel like the whole sport bends backwards for fucking Texas.
Right. What's Austin to Arlington? Like 2 hours, maybe?
Yeah. It's horseshit. Yeah, that's the other game. Friday, January 10th. Ohio State's laying 6. Quinn Ewers stole a bunch of money from Ohio State. What's the crowd?
What's the crowd going to be there in Texas? I mean, because Ohio State's
80-20. 80-20. Dude, I feel like Arlington/Dallas are Texas fans. They play the Cotton Bowl.
35.
The Cotton Bowl is played. The Red River Shootout in the Cotton Bowl every year.
Yeah, right.
And they're like, it's in Dallas. So it's right there. Like, I still think, like, if you ask the average person in Dallas, who's their football team, they're going to say, for college, they're going to say Texas.
No, I mean, I don't think it's going to be 80-20. Ohio State's going to travel too.
Oh, they travel everywhere, but I don't know that. I just feel like Texas is right there, and their fans are rich as fuck. You know what I mean? Like,
anyway, the spread is -6. You were making a Quinn Ewers point. This is his 2 schools. This is the Ewers Bowl.
Well, Ohio State fans are furious because he took like $1.2 million, whatever the number was. I don't have it in front of me, and then moved. Never took a snap, and I think he kneeled the ball once, but and then left for Texas where he was originally committed to. Yeah, pretty hilarious. But I'll tell you this: I mean, I don't think my mind will sway much. I for the Notre Dame Penn State game, I actually want to think about that one.
Yeah.
I'm all over Ohio State here. So
I think I'm going to take Texas in the points. I think Ohio State wins, but I think it's going to be a close game. And I don't think Ohio State is just going to blow everybody out on their path to the championship game.
I just don't think Texas is that good. I don't, man. I thought Arizona State was better. They played a shit ton of backup quarterbacks and an easy schedule. I don't think they're that good. I think Ohio State's going to put it on them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't mind that.
I rarely do I ever root for Ohio State, but I'm in a jam. I'm in a jam here.
If you want one team to win it all between these 4,
Notre Dame. They're independent. I love it. I love an independent college football team. I hope more teams go independent.
Yeah. I think my second would be Penn State though. I mean, because you can't root for Texas or Ohio State really.
Yeah. I would go Penn State too. Notre Dame's the team I want to win. Let's go. All right. All right. Look, we'll be back in a couple days with our pick show. Have a wonderful weekend. We got the college basketball experience coming up tonight, going on Boston fucking radio in a little bit here. Check out, college basketball's going on right now. I've had some fucking terrible beats with fucking Holy Cross. Check out The Gambler. Adam Kaufman on what is that? WRKO 680 for some more college football talk.
There we go.
Excited to talk about all this action and obviously just college football. The portal is closing and like that's another thing. We're gonna see a shit ton of signings in the next I think it's like it closes in the next 10 days. So buckle up for that. We'll have you for an episode for that. Also, we're going to dive deeper into the coaching hires. FCS National Championship. We previewed that on the last episode. Might even jump back into a preview on that to go deeper into that game. That game's awesome. North Dakota State, Montana State, 2 blue bloods going at it. Then also we even previewed the D3 National Championship afternoon between Mount Union and North Central. You going on that again? I forget. You're going Union, aren't you?
Going Mount Union. They're the Ohio school, right? Yep.
Yeah, North Central all day. Let's go.
Naperville? Right. No, I don't think so.
Can't wait to watch that game. That's the best football you can find on this Sunday. All right, check it out. Till next time. This is the college football experience. You better start thinking about yours. And we out of here.
Run and shoot. We can really run and shoot. And the whole team's looking and the whole world's looking with the gamblers. Run and shoot. We can really run and shoot. And you know what you're getting because the books we written with the gamblers. Everybody's trying to stop this team, but we keep on knocking.